It's panel time. Chris Minns is the Labor leader in New South Wales, the Alternative Premier. He's gaining increasing traction. People are writing to me saying he has electoral appeal. I never know what that means, but it sounds good. And then the Liberal from Sydney's West, whom people are describing to me as the voice of truth, TANYA Davies. Welcome to you both, Chris and TANYA. TANYA, you've spoken on behalf of these people in Western Sydney, 15 weeks of lockdown. Have these people been duped? They were told that getting vaccinated would get them full freedom, but the rules keep changing and the goalposts keep moving almost on a daily basis. Where does this fit in, being of the people you represent?
Well, good evening, Alan. Hello, Chris, and it's good to see you back on the airways, Alan. Look, I've been speaking on behalf of my community now for over 8 weeks, particularly around the forced vaccination mandate. And as you're right, the rules and the lockdown restrictions keep changing. And seriously, the changing goalposts are frustrating for the community as well as business owners. And while there's no playbook for a global pandemic, certainly Delta has thrown the government some additional challenges than the original strain last year. But we need clarity, we need certainty. I've been standing up and fighting for my community to ensure that we are treated equally along with the rest of Sydney, something that we've not had done since the 12 LGAs of concern were identified, and certainly since my community was targeted with the first round of mandatory vaccinations or you cannot work. So I've been fighting for my community of Western and Southwestern Sydney, and I'll continue to do so.
Yeah, now look, where does this, before I go to Chris, where does this fit, this brutal lockdown, with the statement by Gladys Berejiklian a couple of months ago only, boasting at the Liberal Party's Federal Council meeting? Listen to this.
We made sure we employed an extra 1,000 people to be frontline contacts with our citizens, including many from the airline industry who were unemployed at the time. And we made sure that we had the systems in place to be able to weather whatever came our way so that we wouldn't ever go into lockdown again.
You see, so that we wouldn't ever go into lockdown again. Chris, I keep saying this coronavirus response is riddled with contradiction. Last month, Scott Morrison gave a clear and unambiguous statement. Listen to this.
The vaccination program in Australia is free and it is not mandatory. That is a very important principle. We are not going to seek to impose a mandatory vaccination program by the government by stealth. That is not what we're going to do. It is important that Australians know that we are not going to seek to impose a mandatory vaccination program in this country by some other means.
Well, Chris, last week Victoria's Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton shut the lunchrooms on Victoria's building sites and ordered at least one jab before being allowed to work, and you saw what followed. So, I mean, you're a senior political figure in this country. Tell our viewers out there, is vaccination compulsory or not?
Well, it's not compulsory, but it does switch from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and occupation to occupation. So I think the message needs to go out that you should get vaccinated. It's important for health and safety. It's
we all
for your family, for your community. And I think, Alan, 18,000 people died of COVID in the United States in May, and just 150 were double vaccinated. So it's a huge personal risk if you decide not to do it, to your family, to your community, to yourself. And Chris, I hope people do it in big numbers.
Yeah, Chris, I know. We all know that, and we're all saying get vaccinated. But for whatever reason, some people don't. But I'm saying these workers are your voters. They're your people. What are they to make of the fact that the Prime Minister says, hey, it's not compulsory? I mean, nationally, 53% are fully vaxxed. Queensland's 46, Tasmania's 57, and so on. But can you understand? I'm trying to get you to understand that the worker is confused. The worker's Prime Minister says it's not compulsory, and then the worker's being told, if you're not vaxxed, you won't get a job. They're your people. Are you standing up for them?
Well, look, I think I am. I mean, there has to be rights for vaccinated workers as well. The right to a job, the right to freedom and safety at work. No system is perfect, but we have to face the reality that 1 in 5 people who died from COVID in Sydney acquired their infection from a public hospital.
Yeah.
So frontline workers having mandatory vaccine requirements are important because people are in vulnerable situations. Their health is deteriorated. No system is perfect. You wouldn't want this in normal circumstances, but considering it's a global pandemic, I don't see any other way of approaching it.
Right, well, Chris, my point is Mark Latham said last night, and I quote, thousands of teachers, police officers and other public servants who want to make their own health vaccination choices are being sacked. Do you know of this? Do you support these sackings?
Well, I mean, I support TANYA Davies' government's position in relation to taking leave in order to get your first vaccination rate. I think it's important also to make the point. It's important to make the point. When I work,
do you support them being sacked if they're not vaccinated? That's all I'm asking you. Yes or no?
At the end of the day, compulsory vaccinations in frontline positions in public health have been in place for decades. The cold and flu vaccine in particular. When I worked in the public service, I had to mandate it to get the hepatitis A and B vaccine. So it's been in place for frontline workers as a health and safety and risk perspective.
Chris,
and that's the situation right now.
We all know that. I'm just asking you, they're your voters and your workers. Are you in favour of them being sacked if they're not vaccinated? Tanya, what are your thoughts on this?
Look, I am extremely disappointed with the Leader of the Opposition, and as is my community in Western and Southwestern Sydney. I've been fighting for my community against forced vaccination and for anyone in public office to say that the government is not forcing people to get vaccinated. They actually have their head in the sand because they are saying if you don't get vaccinated, you will lose your job. That is not Australian. That is not the democratic way. Because the fact of the matter is that those who are vaccinated can still carry the virus. Those who are vaccinated can still carry the virus. We need other measures to protect people. We need other measures to protect people. And can I just say, Alan, that the Fair Work Commission came out this week and has backed in everything I've been standing for 8 weeks, Alan. Everything I've been standing for.
Hang on. Tanya, Chris makes a valid point there that this is your government. But, Chris, can I say to you,
I need to make this point. This is really important. Tanya is nothing but a cog in the wheel of the very same government that she criticises. Curfews, worker permits, low-flying helicopters to Sydney's are all a direct result of people voting for Tanya Davies. It doesn't matter whether she puts up the odd Facebook post, Alan. She's a member of the very same government.
More will vote for Tanya Davies because they believe...
Chris, I'm doing your job as the opposition leader. I'm doing your job as the opposition leader. I'm actually fighting on behalf of my community against the government.
I think it's hilarious.
I'm doing your job. I'm government, I'm opposition, and I'm the union leader.
You're complaining about union leader.
You have become irrelevant in this debate.
I want to ask Chris a question. Chris, one of the important principles of the trade union movement was that workers were in charge of their own bodies and health choices, not employers and politicians. I'm just asking you again, are you supporting forced workplace vaccinations?
Of course, they are extremely important in making sure that we don't have massive deaths in our public hospital system over the coming months. This is the way it's been operating in major places through Europe and North America. It's not a perfect situation, but mandating vaccines for frontline workers have been in place for decades, Alan.
But the Prime Minister says he won't. See, I said in March...
I just want to make this point. 1 in 5 deaths in Sydney have come about directly as a result of someone picking up an infection in a public hospital. And I think, frankly, the absurdity of Tanya Davies, a Liberal MP, a supporter of Gladys Berejiklian, claiming that it's everybody else's fault, it's farcical, Alan. At least with me,
it may be farcical. I'm coming back to my point.
It's a fallacy on the part of Tanya.
Hang on. It may be farcical, but the Prime Minister has told Australia that it's not compulsory. Now, my concern is that there are people very anxious about this. They've copped a lot. They've copped lockdowns. They've got no income and no whatever. And they don't really know where they stand in all of this because they're not going to get any of the benefits in so-called Freedom Day. But then on December 1, the Premier says vaccinated and unvaccinated the same. Aren't workers entitled to ask why, if the Prime Minister says vaccination is voluntary, why are they being sacked if they're not vaccinated?
Oh, well, look, I can't speak for the Prime Minister's words. I mean, he's a member of the Liberal Party, as is Tanya Davies, as is Gladys Berejiklian, as is Brad Hazzard. I will put the question to the member for Mulgoa. She's a prominent supporter of the state Liberal government, of which she's been criticising over the last few weeks. All of the things that have irritated Western Sydney, the curfews, the worker restrictions, the changes, the 2 different sets of rules that apply to metropolitan Sydney have come about directly as a result of people supporting Tam Davies in the seat of Mulgoa. So I think it's farcical to all of a sudden suggest.
I mean, we've got to go.
Alan,
Tanya, we'll go because we'll hear from you next week. But I'll just say this: we're all double vaxxed. That's the point. I'm just sorry for the poor coot for whatever reason isn't vaccinated, and he's got the employment gun at his head. That's all Tanya is saying. Now, I believe this shouldn't be left to the employer. There should be a national policy about this, clearly articulated, and quite frankly, it's not. And as a result, we've got the kind of arguments that we've ventilated tonight. But it's good to talk to you both with a little bit of spirit.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you, Chris. There is Chris Minns and Tanya Davies. They'll be back next week, and I'll be back after the break.